Hey guys, welcome to this week's edition of the Health by Ratio vlog. We're starting a new 4-part series this week that's going to be all around working out and exercise to keep us healthy. The reason why we're doing this is because injuries are incredibly prevalent in our workouts. I'm going to go over some statistics with you in a second. And it's all because we have the wrong emphases on the wrong muscle groups and what we're doing in our group classes, what we're doing in our own workouts, what we're doing for our warm-ups before races and playing sports and all that kind of stuff is pulling us in the wrong direction. So if we can change our view of what things we need to be activating, what things we need to be opening up, then we can create an actual program around balancing out our body that's going to also get us in shape so that we don't have to keep having setbacks and tweaks and nicks and knacks or full-blown injuries that take the wind out of our sail and interrupt our routines. So this series is going to go through today. We're going to be talking about the whys of what we do in our workouts that screw us up and how that's explained in our joint by joint theory, which we're going to touch upon in a second. And then in the coming episodes, we're going to be going over the specific leg exercises that you want to prioritize versus you want to ease up on, and the form on how to do them, as well as the core exercises, as well as the upper body and full body. So those are going to be the upcoming episodes. So this coincides with our Health by Ratio ebook that is the ultimate workout guide, and it's designed to give you all the information that you need to keep your body healthy and balanced while increasing your strength, getting in better shape, improving your athletic performance, all of that kind of stuff. So feel free to click on the links that were in our little write-up of this vlog, and you can download your own ebook so you can follow along as we're doing it and also get a glimpse at what we're going to be covering in the near future. And outside of that, if you're not already subscribed to our newsletter, please fill out the opt-in for our newsletter. We send out these vlogs every week, so you'll get nice updates on the new content so you won't miss anything. All right, so I want to get rolling into the reasoning behind injuries and stopping and starting our workouts at the gym. So often throughout the year, we have the issue of rebooting and stopping our fitness programs and workout routines. Like January rolls around, we got our New Year's resolutions. It might take us a couple of weeks to get into that rhythm, but we start waking up early, going for runs, hitting the gym after work, whatever it might be, and then we trickle off a good 4 to 6 weeks later. Then we have the kind of spring, like May-ish area, April, May, where it's like, oh, it's about to get to beach season, better get in shape for bathing suits, so start training again. But then in the midst of summer, we kind of fall off again. And then there's that back-to-school rush kind of in the fall, that September-October range, right before the holidays. That's kind of the natural ebbs and flows that most people experience. Obviously, there's some deviations, but that's the general gist of when people are really trying to get back in shape. And we always are stopping and then restarting and then stopping. And I think most of us, that whole idea brings up emotions of guilt, basically. That it's, why can't I stay committed to my New Year's resolution goals? Why can't I do this 2 or 3 times or 4 times a week all the time? Why do I keep stopping and starting? I just must not be that committed to my health, or I must be dropping the ball here, or I must be weak-willed, or I'm just destined to be fat, whatever it is, or I must not love my sport enough, kind of thing. And our theory over the last 12 years or so, and we confirmed it a handful of years ago, was that the reason why people are stopping and starting is not because of lack of motivation. It's not because they don't like working out and they don't want to prioritize it, and so they just talk themselves out of it. Even though it might not be your favorite thing, I want you to think back the last time, like, you were in your groove for a good 6 to 8 weeks and you were consistently working out. you probably felt amazing at that time. Your energy levels were going up, you were starting to get stronger, your like the skinny jeans were fitting better, like all of those things were falling into place. That wasn't the point where you were like, you know what, now I'm gonna stop. I'm just sick of this. I'm sick of feeling good, now I'm gonna stop. If you were going to stop at any point in time, it would have been in the first 2 or 3 weeks of you working out. Those are the times where it's like, oh my gosh, why is my alarm going off an hour earlier this morning? Or I feel so sore, I can't get off this toilet right now. Like it's that kind of level of discomfort, and all those things are like shell shocks for your system when you first get back into the rhythm. But after you've been doing it for a few weeks, the motivation to work out gets easier and easier and easier. It's already kind of in your routine, your body's feeling better, it's adapting to it. So people don't stop working out just because they get sick of it and lack motivation. It's actually due to, I say injuries, but it's not, it doesn't have to be like a quote unquote injury. It can be like a tweak here or a pulled muscle there or a pinched nerve there, like stuff that maybe doesn't like take you out and make you bedridden and have surgery and that kind of stuff. But things that are enough that it takes you out of your routine for a week or two, takes the wind out of your sails, and then you feel like you're just kind of a little bit off, a little bit out of balance, a little bit too much in pain, you get a little bit weary, you ease your foot off the gas, and then because you're out of your rhythm, you fall off. So I want to share with you guys some statistics that we had. We did this over the course of 5 years. We surveyed over 5,000 people that were joining different fitness and health facilities that we were working with with their clients in reconditioning their body. So we surveyed over 5,000 people. 98% of the individuals that were signing up for the facility had experienced one or more significant injuries in their lives. So 98% of the people had already had some type of injury. Now that might sound like an absurd statistic, and you're like, well, you must have been working with a physical therapy facility. No, yes, and these were also regular gyms as well that we were surveying. And think about the people that you know that are adults. How many of them have not experienced some type of significant injury? That could have been like a thrown out back, that could have been a torn ACL, that could have been a severely rolled ankle, but something that was big enough that it's kind of caused them to be like, oh, I have this bum insert joint, I have a bum knee, I have a bum shoulder, I have whatever. They consider it like a significant enough injury that it impacted them throughout their life. Now, of those 98%, 90% of those individuals still felt like they were at risk for re-injury. So meaning that they had that like bum joint. So the 90% of the people were still like, yeah, I still feel like that left knee is not so good, or my back is still kind of at risk, or my shoulders or elbow or whatever it is still doesn't feel that great, I gotta be wary of it. Makes sense, right? I think most people feel like they have kind of their one or two Achilles heels, for lack of a better term. Now, of those 90% of the people that felt at risk for re-injury, 82% of them were regularly seeking treatment. So 82% of those people that felt at risk for injury on a monthly or weekly basis were either seeing a chiropractor, going to an acupuncturist, some were going to physical therapy still, some were just doing physical therapy routines on their own to try to stay healthy. But no matter what, they were doing some type of treatment plan, some type of preventative work to try to feel better. Now, 75% of these people had discontinued their routine after 6 weeks. So once the 6-week mark happened, 75% of the group had stopped their routine or canceled whatever their membership was altogether. Now, 4 weeks into that, it was a whole different ballgame. Most of the people were still in it. It was that last 2 weeks that so many people dropped off. Now, 90% had discontinued their routine after 3 months. So almost everybody, 90%, 3 months later, done. Now, when we asked why they stopped, the number one reason by far across the board for all 5,000 people was a re-injury tweak of their previous like bum joint, or a tweak of something totally different. But it was due to some type of pain, injury, pulled muscle, it basically tweaked joint. So those were the statistics on that. Show that basically it's not necessarily our motivation. Our motivation is there, especially when we get into the rhythm. But when we tweak something, when we hurt something, that will take all of the wind out of our sails and we get out of our rhythm. So the question is why? Why are we, as a country, as a population, as a people, why are we just getting jacked up and hurt left and right? That wasn't the case always. It's become far more prevalent. It used to be that you didn't have a bum knee until you were in your 70s, 80s, 90s. Now we have a bum knee in our 40s, and it plagues us until we die in our 90s. So why are we deteriorating so much? Well, I'm going to go over some of those imbalances right now. So there is a very famous theory called the joint-by-joint theory. The joint-by-joint theory was made famous, I think, by Gray Cook and Michael Boyle, and maybe one or two other functional physical therapists and strength and conditioning coaches. And essentially what their idea is that our body, now each joint needs to be mobile and stable, but if you kind of look at the overall necessity, our body has an every other joint necessity. Meaning, if you look at the ankles themselves, you want them to be more mobile. You want them to have really good range of motion and still be stable. We don't want them falling all over the place, but mobility is their primary goal. The knees themselves, we want them to be stable. We don't want them moving all over the place. We want the knees to stay relatively stable. Then going up to the hips, we want those mobile, but they often get so locked up because they're sitting all the time. But we want mobility in our hips. Then at the lumbar, we want that to be stable. We don't want to be picking things up with a bunch of rounded backs and having a bunch of lumbar movement as we're getting things. We want the core to keep this part stable and get the mobility from the hips, so getting picking up things and bending down to pick up things from the hips. And the next one up is the thoracic spine. We want mobility in the thoracic spine. We want to be able to reach and bend and twist and do all those kinds of things while keeping that core stable. Then we go to the shoulder girdle. Now the shoulder girdle, we want to be relatively stable because the shoulder girdle, we have that tendency to have that bad posture where we're rolled forward. Well, that literally moves the head of the humerus, the ball and socket of the shoulder. It moves it out of the ball and socket. It basically shifts it forward. So it is unstable and out of alignment of where it should be gliding in. And that's what causes so much like rotator cuff issues and shoulder issues in general. So we want it to be stable in the neutral position. Now again, we also want good mobility. We want good range of motion in that shoulder, but we want it stable in the positions that are a necessity for it. And then so that's our joint by joint theory. So we're going up, mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile, stable. So let's think about our exercises, like just a quick rundown of some of the moves that we're doing on a regular basis and how that might be impacting us. And I want to use two of our clients, and I'm going to be referring to these kind of case studies throughout all of our episodes. But one of those clients was a client named Marissa. She was a mother of three. I shouldn't say was, is a mother of three. And she is a fitness enthusiast in general, really likes to do group classes and stuff like that. And also loves participating in triathletes. Now, she's not a super competitive triathlete. She likes to do about 3 or 4 a year. And it's not like she's trying to win. She just enjoys those races. So she's kind of more of a weekend warrior in that sense. And then our other client that we worked with was a client, Brandon, who was a college football player who transitioned from community college to a 4-year at Marshall. And both of them were trying to regularly exercise. Obviously, we have Brandon who's trying to put on size and get more powerful. His issue when he was playing at community college was that he was a third string safety. So he played on the defensive side of the ball. He was third string on the depth chart. And that was because he had he'd gotten a bit too slow, essentially. He was never that fast, but he had an ACL injury his first year at his community college, and that he got even slower after that. And so he wasn't able to keep up with some of the other faster players, and so he had dropped down off the lower on the depth chart. Then with regards to Marissa, she wanted to just stay fit. She wanted to stay healthy. She wanted to participate in her triathletes, but she was finding that she had degenerative disc disease in her lower back, and her lower back was killing her all the time. And so she often had to take breaks throughout the year to prevent herself from overdoing it on her back. She'd drop out of races all the time. So she wasn't able to be as consistent or active as she wanted to. Going back to Brandon, also beyond his ACL, he also had some hamstring issues and shoulder issues that he was dealing with throughout his recovery, but his ACL was the big thing. But since then, he had pulled his hamstring and also had tweaked his shoulder while trying to train back his power and his quickness and agility kind of thing. So for both of them, when we took a look at their workout programs, the kind of things that they were doing to train, we always compare those to how their body's being pulled out of balance. And for Brandon and for Marissa, they had very similar imbalances. Both had very tight and overactive calves and Achilles. That's really common for really any athlete or someone who runs or sprints, because you're consistently pounding into the ground, which is activating those calves and Achilles and getting them really strong, but also really tight. And they had very tight hip flexors. And this is really common for people that sit for long periods of time. Like Brandon was a student. He's sitting at a desk all day long. And Marissa, she wasn't sitting at a desk. She was with her children for most of the day, but she was driving a lot, tons. So she was sitting throughout the day. Not to mention, she's also sitting on a bike for long periods of time. So she's staying flexed forward at the hips. And Brandon is consistently sprinting, driving his knees up, really engaging those hip flexors. So both of them had really tight hip flexors. And then beyond that, from sitting, driving, being on the computer, for Marissa sitting on a bike and rolled forward, they had upper cross syndrome where their thoracic spine was getting compressed and their shoulders were rolling forward. So this is really common for most individuals, but it really is very, very prevalent in a lot of athletes. But if you're a desk jockey, if you're spending a lot of time at a desk, you probably have all these deviations as well. So when they were doing their training and their workouts, I asked them, okay, what are your main go-tos? Well, Brandon was doing a ton of machine-based work for his legs, like leg presses, which you're essentially sitting down and you are bending and pushing a weight away from you. Then he was doing leg extensions, where you're sitting and you're extending your knee against a weighted machine. And he was doing seated hamstring curls, so sitting down and him curling the weight toward his butt. So all of those, if you caught, is in a sitting position, a flex forward position. So if you have a tendency to have really tight hip flexors and your entire leg workout is putting you in more seated positions and bent over positions that are closing off your hip flexors, that might be a little bit of a good sign that that's some counterintuitive stuff. You might be pulling your body, you might get some issues that might be foreshadowing of some problems that are going to arise, and we're going to cover it a little bit more in a sec. For Marissa, her training was either running or biking and swimming, but that was her cardiovascular work. And running and biking will tighten up those hip flexors, tighten up those calves, roll the shoulders forward. And her group classes, which is really common in many group classes, whether this is yoga, whether it is Pilates, whether it is circuit-based, CrossFit, essentially all of them have a tendency to prioritize the muscles in front. So she's doing a lot of push-ups. She's doing a lot of shoulder press work. She's doing a lot of mountain climbers and burpees and doing different types of knee drives, jump rope, like things that essentially all of those moves are flexing those hips more. They're activating the front shoulders, which are going to roll you forward even more. Those are the things that are getting tight from driving and sitting and whatnot. And she's doing a ton of like plyometric work, whether it's jumping or fast feet work. That's again engaging those calves. So she's already overworking them in her with her sport, their weekend warrior sport, and now she's working on them doubly in those group classes. So again, if those are your tightnesses, then you're going to start to pull yourself even further out of alignment. Brandon, for his upper body, he was a standard kind of meathead before we worked on him. So he loved bench press. He was always doing bench press and shoulder work and that kind of stuff. He would do some back, but he was really cranking on the bench press. So for him, he had the same issue as Marissa, but him more from lifting super heavy weights, her more from doing boot camp style classes. But both of them were having that upper cross syndrome. And this is really counterintuitive, not only for us posturally speaking, and this is my last main point that I want to make, and then we'll, in the coming episodes, we're going to get into some of the more technical stuff. But it's not only counterintuitive with regards to the postural imbalances. If you have tight hip flexors, maybe don't do a bunch of knee drives and leg lifts for cores and pikes for core exercises, because those are primarily hip flexor dominant. If you have really tight calves, maybe don't do a ton of jump rope. If you have really tight shoulder girdle, maybe you shouldn't be doing a bunch of bench press or a bunch of burpees. But the last main thing is the fact that how much muscle we have in front of us, anterior, the front of our body, versus what percentage of our muscle do we have behind us. And for the average person, about 30% of our muscle lies in front. So our quads, our core, well, part of our core, our chest and our shoulders, that is about 30%. Then 60 to 70%, two-thirds, let's say one-third, two-thirds, is posterior, all behind you. So your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves, and all of your back muscle. So if you were perfectly balanced and had no deviations, and you went to work out and you wanted to keep yourself balanced, in theory, two-thirds of your workouts should be focusing on the muscles behind you. Only one-third should be on the muscles in front of you. But things like push-ups, things like burpees, things like mountain climbers, things like pikes, things like even things like shoulder presses, all of those exercises that are go-tos all work on the stuff in front. Things like rowing and glute bridging and deadlifting and lunging and those kinds of things work on the things behind us. And when we look at our whole workouts, often we'll see far more things focusing on the anterior and far less things focusing on the posterior. So in terms of just logical in how much muscles in the front and the back, we want to be spending a lot more time on the posterior. And if you do, it's going to translate to, one, a heck of a lot more calories burned. So you're going to get in better shape. You're going to work on the muscle, it's your largest muscle groups more. That's why it burns more calories. And those large muscle groups produce natural anabolic hormones, so your growth hormones and your testosterone and that kind of stuff, not dangerous levels, but healthy levels that help you rebuild lean tissue. And then you're going to balance out your body, which is going to make you more powerful and more explosive. And that's exactly what happened to Marissa when she was running and when she was biking, when she was swimming. She felt so much stronger when she was racing and not only healthier, as well as Brandon being able to overcome and really heal his ACL, solve his hamstring and shoulder problems, and then translate that to becoming way more explosive, getting his quickness back and progressing his speed beyond levels that he had ever had before. So that's what's going to be coming up in the coming weeks, guys. We're going to be talking about the specific exercises. I'm really looking forward to it. Outside of that, if you haven't already downloaded your ebook, please do. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, do that really quick. We just need your email, and we'll send you updates when we launch these each time. Outside of that, the last thing, I always like to offer this to anybody who's checking us out. We if you want some free one-on-one help, we would love to help. We offer free video consultation calls, and you can connect with us, and we take a deep dive into what your functional health goals are, where you're coming from, whether you need to rehab from an injury or whether you're looking to take your post-rehab to a whole new level and get back to a certain level of strength and performance and fitness. But wherever you are, we want to find out where that is and help you create a plan to get to your functional health goals. So click the link to look at our calendar and you can schedule a free call. And outside of that, hope you have a great rest of your day.